what hooked you early on to engineering?
I'm excited for certain companies who have not yet looked at the automation side of things. A team effort and to just support your teammates along the way is such good culture, in my opinion. I mean, these smaller companies that are just getting bigger and bigger, they do need a solution.
Med Device Boston is your go-to med tech sourcing and education expo, September 30th through October 1st at Boston's BCEC. Engineered to advance a next generation of medical device innovation, this event unites 200 plus suppliers, 1,500 plus attending professionals, and OEM decision makers in the number 3 med tech hub in the US. Explore everything from 3D printing and AI to materials, regulatory tech, and contract manufacturing, all under one roof. Visit meddeviceboston.com to register and plan your visit. Links in the show notes. Katie Friday, welcome to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. How are you doing today?
I am good, and thank you for letting me join this podcast. I'm very excited.
I'm super stoked. Katie, your and my friendship has been just one of laughing, literally since the moment we met at a random elevator bank at IMTS in 2020.
Chicago, yeah.
In Chicago in 24. I was getting off the elevator, you were getting on, or vice versa. And it was just like, hey, are you here for IMTS? Cool. Come by this booth. I'm doing a lot of recording stuff. Would love to talk to you more. And so, yeah, it was great how we met. And for those of you watching and listening, Katie and I are going to have a shorter episode today because we just spent 20 minutes trying to figure out how to work through audio shit. And we got it. We're here. We're talking now.
20 minutes later.
20 minutes in. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Katie, I'm stoked to have you on here. You're a good human. Your story is pretty cool. I love the arc. And so I'm excited for people to hear it and learn a little bit more about who you are. And in that vein, we have the first icebreaker question, which is, if your life were a movie, what kind of movie would it be? Who would play you? And what would the opening scene be?
So I had some time to think about this because you did prep me for this question. And, everybody answers this question probably very differently, but it would definitely be a rom-com because obviously I do love. I love a Hallmark movie. I can't say that my life would be a Hallmark movie because I feel like those are very interesting storylines about people who have, tree farms and, someone's going to come take the tree farm away. So not a Hallmark movie, but I would say it'd be in the realm of like a romantic comedy. But I think that probably for my opening scene, I would be driving in my Volkswagen Beetle, top down, and I would be cruising probably to an appointment, a work appointment, because I do love my job and I like to drive that car when I can. And the wind would be blowing in my hair and there'd probably be something funny that happens along the way, but maybe not like in the car, because I feel like that could be dangerous. But I would
like
be in my big blue bug. Yeah, something like a bee's like bothering me and I'm like trying to swat it away. But yeah, I would probably say my opening scene would be that, like in my little convertible driving down the road. And I struggled on finding somebody who would play me. I've been told I look like Florence Pugh, which was a lovely compliment. But I would say just based off of that, I would probably say she would play me. But I'm open to suggestions.
I buy that. 100% buy that. And just knowing more about who you are, I was also thinking Reese Witherspoon, could
I
play
like
you.
that one.
Yeah.
I'm changing my answer. Reese Witherspoon's for sure.
Okay.
I like that one a lot.
And so I have so much to unpack. Are we thinking like a Sweet Home Alabama type rom-com, or is like a Bridesmaids style rom-com, like more
probably
slapstick?
even like Legally Blonde. Didn't she play in that?
Oh yeah,
I think
absolutely.
Legally Blonde makes the most sense, especially me being a woman engineer.
Yeah.
I feel like that one is definitely like, we're, coming into the workspace and people are like, oh, Yes, like more women are coming into this space. So I think that Legally Blonde hits it right on the head right there.
All right,
But
I like
hopefully,
that.
hopefully I don't get broken up with in a restaurant. That would probably be ideal. That I wouldn't be out of spite.
let's let's not have that happen. And so now I have to unpack about the Beetle. What year? You said baby blue. So what year is
Yes.
this Beetle?
So this is a 2013, and funny enough, I have owned two other Volkswagen Beetle convertibles previous to this. My mom and I are obsessed with them. We actually had two red ones that her and I matched, and we would go driving down the street in, and people were like, "Are they part of a car show?" No, it's just me and my mom. So we actually had matching bugs, and I had just recently traded in my red bug for this blue one because I had a blue bug as my first car in high school. But that one was an older version and the transmission went out multiple times. So, still somehow loved a Volkswagen Beetle. So I stuck with my choice
I
and
love it.
I've been enjoying it the past couple months. So it's been really awesome. And it's better weather now because in North Carolina it can be a little too hot to go with the top down places. But now in the fall it is so much better. And I am, like I said, just enjoying it now. Did not
I
enjoy
love
it
it.
in the summer.
Yes, I love it. And I do love those older VWs.
Me too.
I want a like mid to late 60s bus. Like that is my dream car.
Hmm.
Um, they're so easy to work on. They are just iconic at the bug and the bus. They are my favorite vehicles of all time. Like if I could, when people are like, what car could you have or would you buy if you could have any car at all? And people are like Lamborghinis and Mercedes. I'm like, I want a bus. Like I want a hippie van.
And they actually do have the newer versions coming out of that. I didn't know if you saw. I mean, they're way out of my price range. But I do think maybe on Facebook Marketplace, I could lowball someone, see if they're willing to go maybe $30,000 less. Yeah, hey, there's no harm in asking. The worst they can say is no. So
I love it. All right, so we now have a good idea of who Katie Friday is based on her answer of a rom com, driving in her baby blue 2013 bug with the top down, swarming in some sort of like moment right on her way to a sales call. Legally blonde esque. I love it. I can paint the picture. I see it in my head right.
fake blonde, unfortunately, but still.
You didn't have to say that, man. You didn't
I
have to
think
say
people
that.
are gonna know.
I we're most men are idiots. So the women listeners or women audience would have known maybe. Men
Men,
are idiots.
no.
We wouldn't have had a clue. All right, so let's get into the more serious of the icebreakers. And Katie, tell us, what does culture mean to you? Like as a human, not like a definition, but like your definition of culture.
Yeah, so I would probably say, I've had a couple different roles at my company. I'm sales engineer now, but I was a project engineer when I first joined. And I will say that company culture probably to me is having a very supportive team. Because, for the project engineering portion of it, I needed to turn to my colleagues to ask questions. I was brand new right out of college. I needed that support system to kind of show me the way. Once they kind of showed me that, then I knew I'd be okay. And just really working together with them really made it feel like good culture. And you'll come along to people that may not be, you won't get along the best, but you still work towards the same goal. So, I think everyone can kind of put their, different personalities aside and still work as a team to get to the end goal. And then on the sales side of things, I talk to my engineers, I talk to our end users that we're working with. I talk to the different manufacturing teams, engineering, maintenance, utilities, all of these teams. They all need to work together. So I think that really is the bulk of the culture, in my opinion. But just being able to communicate with each other and being able to see their side of things and their problems. Engineering and maintenance could have the same end goal, but they're going to both tell you two different stories. And at the end of the day, you still need to work with each other to be able to get to that end goal. And I think that that's probably the biggest struggle that some people have at certain companies. And we work with a bunch of different manufacturers that I see a team that works so well with their engineering team. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like they're going to be able to achieve this way faster. And then other people, they don't necessarily work together as a team in the beginning, but slowly and surely they do get to that point where they are communicating with each other. And I think that's a huge thing, is just to be able to respect and work with other people that you're working with. Because obviously I couldn't do anything by myself. I have a phenomenal team that supports me and encourages me and tells me that you're doing the right thing. Even if somebody says you're not, you are doing the right thing, with the end goal that you have in mind. And I'd say that with culture, another thing probably is like good leadership too. Having somebody to look towards, in a time where I am newer into this, like the working field in general. I'm probably about around 4 or 5 years in. And I have, my boss and the owners of our company who I can go to at any moment that I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I said, I could have a project given to me and I have no idea what this RFQ is saying. And so I go to them immediately and they are there to guide me. So I think that really kind of just ties in even to just a team effort, and to just support your teammates along the way is such good culture, in my opinion. It's probably kind of basic answer, but I think hopefully most people are like, we should work together as a team, but
One
not
would
everybody
hope.
agrees.
No,
So
no.
yeah.
So I gave a talk this week, and one of the closing statements I had was that culture is the answer to the issues that this industry faces, and leadership is the lever that should be pulling on that solution, right? We can't build culture necessarily from the floor up and have it take hold throughout the entire organization. It has to come from leadership down. They have to model that behavior. They have to model that teamwork, that communication, all of those kinds of things. So I love where you're headed. And just your self-awareness and knowing that, you don't know everything and you surround yourself with people who do. That just means you're going to be a great future leader, because that's what great leaders do, is they know what their skill set is, and then they build teams to accentuate the areas that they lack in, right? So you're well on your way.
Well, and I think it's funny. I think I told you my favorite thing that I tell people is, I am the youngest of our team, like at my company. And I always say, I don't mind being the dumbest in the room, but it gets tiring because I'm around so many smart people that I'm like, I'm so excited to learn from them. But man, it is exhausting being that newbie in the room anywhere. And you just, I take a lot of notes. I love to talk, but I will say, in certain meetings, they're like, Katie, you're really quiet today. I'm like, I'm just listening and really taking it all in because I have nothing to say that is that you guys don't already know. So it's definitely, it's awesome to be surrounded by so many like intelligent, smart people who have the experience. But I'm very, very excited, the longer I am in my career, to see the different changes and stuff that I go through, and just to see how much more knowledge I can retain and actually be able to use in like real life.
So you've brought up a couple of times the that you haven't been in this industry very long, right? 4 to 5 years, as you said. You grew up in West Virginia. You studied at WVU, at West Virginia University. You studied engineering. What hooked you early on to engineering?
That's a good question. So I actually have a small backstory on that. I actually went to WVU. At first, I was actually in dental hygiene. So I actually was, when I was first going to school, I was like, I'm going to be a dental hygienist. And then I started shadowing a dental hygienist, and I was like, oh my, wow, people, this is not going to be for me. As much as I love people, they can't really talk back to you while you're, working on teeth. So I ended up, as soon as I got there, I was like, I'm going to change to social work. And I was like, I think that, social workers are so selfless. They take care of others. I was like, I think I would really like to do that. And so for actually my first 2.5 years at college, I was going to school for social work. And I came up on my last semester because they had me on an accelerated program to be able to graduate in 3 years to go on to do my master's in 5. So I was like, that's awesome. Well, I got into my rotation. Like, it's almost like your last semester is almost all in person. You're either working at a nursing home or you're working with other social workers. So it's almost like a mentorship. And my sister had sat me down and she was like, "Hey," she goes like, "Have you thought about like, engineering?" And I was like, "I think I'm a little too far behind." I said, I don't think that this is gonna that's gonna work out. And unfortunately, in this day and age, like social workers just don't get paid really a livable like wage. And she got me thinking. I was like, maybe I could go for engineering and figure out how to do that in my next couple of years, and maybe still be able to give back to the community and be able to help and volunteer. So I had made the decision to switch 2.5 years into college, and I switched over to engineering, and that was rough. That was very, very rough because I had to take summer classes for the next basically 3 summers to get caught up. And along that, I had to go for an extra year. So I actually graduated in 5 years with industrial engineering. And engineering was tough. I know that a lot of people go to NC State down here, ECU. They're like, and those programs, I don't know if I would have made it. I really don't. So I was very thankful for WVU. And I'm the so-called imaginary engineer from my sister, who's a mechanical engineer. So, but I'm still an engineer. I'm still an engineer. So basically, I remember my first semester in engineering. Unfortunately, I failed a class and I didn't pass another one. And I remember just calling my mom and I sobbed. I said, I had a 4.0 before switching to engineering. I was so excited to have that GPA again. And I had basically had to retake 2 classes my first semester. And I was sobbing in a grocery store parking lot. And my mom goes, "Don't worry." She goes, "Go get some food and just, sleep on this. You'll be okay." And the next semester, I passed my classes, which was great. And I really do think that journey really showed me that resilience is an amazing thing. I do think that some people are like, I can't be an engineer, I can't be a doctor, I can't do this because I'm not good at the schoolwork. But I think being resilient really was my thing. I wasn't good at math classes, but the second time around I was like, wow, I'm actually, it just took me a little bit longer to understand those fundamentals, I guess. And so I do think that if I would have called it quits after that first semester, and thank the Lord for my mama, because I was sobbing hysterically. She almost had to drive down and come and comfort me. But we made it through. But yeah, that kind of was my little journey to kind of get into engineering. And when I had actually finally graduated, it was COVID. So I got really lucky just with like, what is it, hiring freezes. Nobody was taking on new employees. And I ended up moving down to North Carolina about 5 years ago, so around 2020. And I had a friend down here. I said, "Hey, I just need a job." I said, I'm okay with whatever." And she was working at a real estate company. And I was like, "Hey," I said, "I'll work there." She said, "We have a receptionist position open." It was called the Director of First Impressions, which sounded very fancy.
Sounds super fancy.
It was a receptionist, but still, I was the first to see new
But
customers.
I
So
l- and I love the rebranding of that to make it
Mhm.
sound more professional than
Just a
receptionist, right?
receptionist. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I liked how they did that. And I was there and I made some really good connections there. That's actually how I got my first engineering job. Is I had met one of the real estate agents, and her husband was in engineering, connected me with a recruiter. And then I was with a recruiting agency for a couple of months. And that's actually how I got my first project engineering job. And a couple months after I was in that like project engineering role, Industrial Automated Systems reached out to me saying that they would love to hire me full time. And I was like, I accept. I was like, this is great. And so when they had hired me, they actually, they knew I liked to talk a lot. So they were like, sales team is coming for you. And I was like, okay. I said, y'all let me know when. So that's, that's kind of how I ended up here. I talk too much.
Perfect. Sometimes you just got to put it all out there and it will figure itself out in the long run. So I love it. So in this job, you work across a lot of different industries, right? Pharma, food, where there's a lot of safety and compliance pressures on top of other things that you already are working towards implementing. What's one of the hardest challenges you faced getting a project from design to execution?
So I will say that, this is always customer dependent. Most of the time, the customers do want to move forward with a project, but depending on funding and what they've put in their budget for that year, projects could be pushed back years even. And so I will say probably the biggest struggle is, just being able to communicate with the customers to figure out their goals and to make sure that we're also on the same page. Like we know how to help you. We can make this happen for a certain amount of money. Okay, you have a budget, we can work with that. We really want to just make the customer happy, which I think is the entire goal of being on a sales team or in sales in general. And so I would say probably the struggle is meeting the right people in the company too. And being able to tell them, hey, like, I know that you have this issue, let me come and help. We want to set them up so that they don't have to keep calling us back. So once the project's all finished, we want them, I mean, if they have to call us for like a program change or, they want to do another upgrade, like that's great. But, once our project's finished, we hope that we give them all the utilities and, necessary things that they don't have to call us until they're ready for the next upgrade. So, I'd probably say that's a pretty big struggle is just finding the right people and, making sure that they have what they need, like for the project. And like I said, this could be funds. This could just be like, oh, we don't have the resources to help. That's what we're here for. So, and then you said on the safety side, oh my goodness, that's usually what happens first is the safety projects. And they're always crazy asks. I'll tell you what. There's been some times and certain places like pharmaceutical, like obviously safety is number one. Same thing in these like rubber and tire facilities, just because there are so many dangers to the employees who are working there. And those projects are always funded and they like for them to happen quick. So that's also a struggle. Is sometimes the customer is like, hey, thank you for walking this project down. Can we have this work done in a week? And I'm like, a week from now? I'm like, okay. And of course, I take that back to my engineers. They're like, did you promise them that we would get this done in a week? And I go, I won't say that I didn't, but I didn't say yes. I did not say 100% yes. I said, we will do the best we can. So I probably get in trouble with some of my engineers and some of the managers. I'm told to always say yes.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and you're kind of that conduit, right? You have to translate from the customers to your technical team and vice versa, right? But you're the one who, in this sales engineer type role, you're the one who has the empathy to actually be a salesperson, right? Yet you talk the technical speak of the engineers, so you actually understand what's going on. If your engineers had more empathy, they'd be in sales, right? Just always remember that if they actually knew how to interact with other humans, your engineers would be in sales because they would make way more money.
Some of them are very good with those customers. I'll tell you
Okay.
what, they're smooth talkers and I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "When do you want to come over to the sales side?" They're like, "No." I'm like, "Okay, got it." So I will say we have all of our engineers are extremely, like I said, they're in automation. I mean, most of them went for some type of computer engineering or even like a NC State grads, ECU. I mean, they're all very local to North Carolina in general. So it's very amazing because I get to learn from them. They are my SMEs. So, like I said, I try my best to make them happy too because I'm the one who's always asking for favors. Like, hey, I have a customer coming in. Can you talk to them? They're coming in 10 minutes. Sorry for the late notice. And they always really do an awesome job of, talking to the customers and making sure that, they also make the customers feel a lot better too because they see the brains behind our team. And I think that that's just awesome for the customer to be able to see as well because sometimes when they're talking to me, they're like, "Oh, she has an engineering degree." But I'm not going to be the one who's executing that work for them. It's going to be our automation engineers, our control engineers, and so it's good for the customer to be able to see who's going to be executing their project, which is great.
And I know NDAs exist, and I know you probably can't name customer names, but what is in your career, what has been the coolest thing that you've worked on to date?
I actually probably one of the coolest jobs, and it actually had to do with our sister company, Tryon Electric. So just to preface, I work for Industrial Automated Systems and Tryon Electric. They're sister companies, so we do a lot together in like the industry. And so I actually got to go down for it was some type of electrical installation job that we were quoting. And it's this little small place over in Wilmington. I mean, it's a bigger building, but it's over in Wilmington. And I had no idea what to expect. And I go in there and I see this massive robot. Like it was crazy tall, like probably 100 feet. And I'm like looking at this thing. And I asked the guy, I said, hey, like, I don't know if you're allowed to tell me. I said, but what do you guys do here? And they actually would be the people who would build like the ESPN and like these big concert stages. And they work with a lot of like news networks and, just bigger places where NASCAR, like those types of things. And so they would actually build the broadcasting stages and they would ship them or, drive them out to the customer. This could be, like I said, a NASCAR race. This could be a baseball game. This could be, just concerts even. And I thought that was so cool because their customers send them back like thank yous. That robot was, I guess, on like a news channel and they had sent them that as like a thank you. This massive robot. I'll have to send you a picture if you want to see it because it was the coolest thing ever. And I did get one of our lead estimators, the manager of all of our other estimators, for trying to take a picture with me in front of it. And I was like, he doesn't like pictures, but he was like, that is cool. So he was willing to take a picture with me too. I was like, yes. I should have posted it on LinkedIn, but I hadn't had a chance to. But it was one of the coolest things ever because you never think about who actually makes those, broadcasting like tents and the tables and where like the guys are doing the after game talks. And I thought that was so neat. And also that customer gets to go to a lot of those events too, because they're setting up the stuff for them. So they actually will get tickets to NASCAR, baseball games, even Super Bowl. Like they set up the entire Super Bowl like arrangement for that halftime show and that type of stuff. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. That's so cool. And in a place so small like Wilmington, North Carolina. Like, I mean, it's not small, but you know what I mean?
Oh,
Like
it's
you just
small.
wouldn't think about it.
Yeah. My
And
mom
I
used
just
to
thought that
live
was
in
so
Wilmington.
cool.
It's small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's smaller compared to Raleigh, probably
Yeah.
smaller than a lot of cities, not
Yeah.
Chicago.
Not Chicago.
Chicago's way bigger.
Yes. Let's talk automation a little bit, right? And it's been dubbed this like silver magic wand, silver bullet, like solution for some of the skills gap issues, right? There are some people who say that it leads to loss of jobs, right? I'm not one of those people. I think that we need to embrace automation. It's just a tool.
Automation can almost people think that it makes people unemployed, almost like that they will lose their job. And I guess I can understand why they see it that way. But the awesome thing about automation is people still need to be involved when automation is present. I think that some people think that, oh, that's going to completely erase me. Like I'm not going to be able to, work on that line anymore. And a lot of these pharmaceuticals, rubber and tire, I mean, they are all controlled by PLCs. And here's the HMI screen that you're going to go to. And people still need to be using those screens. Like people like us and production line members, the operators, they are the ones who, if anything, they get to learn a new skill set. And when things are implemented in automation, I mean, you're given SOPs. People are making these documents that's going to make it easy for you to understand and to learn it. So, for example, like a food and beverage line, yes, there are machines that are putting together the certain foods that, and packaging it, but someone still needs to be on that operator side to make sure that there's no errors because I mean, computers are going to make errors and so are humans. And so I think that it won't eliminate jobs. If anything, it'll create more and it'll be able to give people more skill sets to really even go into a whole new field. I mean, before maybe they were just packaging like a little Debbie cake or something like that. But now they get to see the computer screen and all the different screens that say, hey, here's your production rate. Here's how much you're doing an hour of these little Debbie cakes. And I must be hungry because I usually don't even think about little Debbie cakes, but that sounds really good right now. But I was gonna say I'm gonna have to give me some food after this. But really, I think that it encourages people to learn more and to. I mean, there's YouTube channels that can even show people like here's an introduction to, I don't know, computer engineering, for people who might not be able to go back to school and learn that, but you can learn enough skills and get some certificates online that are free. And that would make you qualify for that job. Or if people are internally already at the company and they make these automation changes, and now they're like, oh no, I don't know that. Well, that's kind of what we would come in and almost teach you what we've done and make it easy to understand and easy to learn. And then you are now the operator of that line. So you're able to go in and troubleshoot. And then if you need backup, you might call somebody else who's on a different line. And, I think it's just a good learning opportunity too for people. But I can understand why people think that, when automation comes in, and things are changed up, that they may lose their job. But I do just think it creates more opportunities for people to learn and to actually almost get promoted to a different job.
You may be thinking, why do I need to attend Med Device Boston? Because you're going to do more than browse. You'll build your pipeline. You'll see, you'll touch, and you'll engage with innovative solutions from 200 plus suppliers while participating in hands-on workshops, expert-led education sessions, and curated matchmaking, all engineered to accelerate your projects. Whether you're solving design, regulatory, or production challenges, Med Device gives you key conversations, timely insights, and the tools to move forward. Med Device Boston. Advance your pipeline, advance your network, advance what's next.
Well, and I think food and bev, pharma, rubber, because of their systems and the way that they've had to adopt automation earlier on in certain stages, that they are further along in their ability to match the tech to the training. Does that make sense? Like, I'm not an engineer, I'm not in your world, but it seems like those industries are far enough along in their automation journey that they're able to see, okay, we need to bump up our training to these people to match the technology. Whereas I think the fear from the metal side, right, machining, who are the more reluctant and to automation systems, I think that they don't know how to implement the training to match the technology. Do you think there's any validity in that?
Like having, I guess, like having somebody more inexperienced with maybe a line or a machine that has now gone more towards an automation route. Is that kind of what you're saying? Like the training that they're giving them may not be enough to understand it. I do think that, you know, and I always, because like I said, when I was in the project engineering side of things, I looked at a lot of SOPs, and I will say that some of the SOPs did not help me. I was like still almost more confused or had more questions. And I do think that that's, somebody who, some of these companies do need to almost ramp up their SOPs and make them more understandable or easy to understand for people who maybe aren't more technical and who just are coming in and wanting to operate this line. I do think that that people could do a better job of it just to make it easier, like almost like, automation for dummies type of books. Like that stuff is, explain it to me on a fifth grade level, like that type of thing. And I will say I work with a lot of engineers who can tell me a very complex situation and go down to my level where I don't know anything about it. And they teach me about it in a way that I understand. And I love those types of people because that's how I work. I do so much better if you can show me a picture or draw me a picture of how this system is set up. I do a lot better of retaining that information. But I do wish that people would take more time with their SOPs to really be like, hey, I'm going to take this to an engineer and see if he understands it. And then I'm going to take it to a sales engineer and see if she understands it. And then they take it to somebody who might be a completely different marketing and see if they could understand it. And then they kind of see that, maybe the marketing person kind of picked up on a couple things, but let's make it easier for her to understand or him to understand. And I really wish that people would think more like that. But of course, I am an engineer myself, and I can overcomplicate a situation very easily. And I do know that. And I've been more self-aware of it. And when when I do talk to my friends who might be in the medical field, they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, good question. Let me rephrase this. And so, like I said, I do think that there is definitely more there's a lot of opportunities for people to make those easier for operators, or to enhance it so that it is understanding. Like it is hard. Like I said, as an engineer, I still don't get things, and I'll admit that in a second. Don't even ask me anything about a mechanical engineer and what they do. I know my sister's one, but I don't know what an engineer does. There's so many different types.
But let me ask you, Katie, in this more male dominated world that you exist in, what has your experience been as a woman in this field?
That's a really good question. I honestly, for me, I've definitely had and like I said, this is not all men in any means, but I will say that I'd probably say 98% of my job has been actually just very much just good communication between men and women. And I've felt respected. I've felt like I belong, which is great. And then there is going to be those scenarios which, and sometimes I would like leave from a customer meeting and I was like, wow, I felt like I didn't have any respect in there, and that they did not care what I said to them. I was not on their level. And and unfortunately it has been with men. And like one example is my boss and I, and we're both women. She's been in this field for 20 plus years, and we had gone to a customer, and it was an older gentleman, maybe like in his 50s, and he did not take us seriously. And like I said, my boss is extremely educated. I mean, she could talk to any engineer, any automation engineer, and she knows what they're talking about. And I was very new to the sales side of things. So I go in here and this man is not talking with us, he's talking to us and down to us. And I was very quiet in that meeting. I truly was probably the quietest I've ever been. And my boss was doing all the talking, and she was doing an amazing job of explaining, who we were, what we were here to help with. And like I said, I thought she was crushing it, but the man did not, he wasn't even looking at her. He was truly like facing away from her. He did not give her the time of day. And finally she said something about her degree from NC State. And all of a sudden this guy kind of gives her a little bit more of a, and this is 30, 40 minutes into the conversation. So I'm over here uncomfortable because I'm like, this man hates us. I'm like, he does not think we are smart. He does not think we should be here. And she did explain to me after, because we had left that meeting and he finally kind of was talking to us. And he ends up calling us for more work and more support in the future. So like I said, I think that, she really did a really good job of like turning that situation around, because I'm not going to lie, I shut down. As soon as I knew he did not respect me and he did not care, I was like, man, I just feel like this is a waste of our time. But he ends up calling us for more work. And, the longer we got to know him, he was a lot nicer to us and obviously respected us in what we did for our work. And I think that that's just a perfect case of like, sometimes it takes, you don't know everybody's personality. Sometimes people are going to sound like they are mean and they are, in lack of better terms, I was going to say, and like,
Right.
but it's like, I was going to say, if anybody's watching it, I
You
don't
can cuss
care.
on this show. You can say asshole on this
But
show.
that's the thing is, I think that, I've been in that situation. And then also you are going to come along to some people who don't respect your relationship with your partner, or they definitely go over a boundary that is a wall that I set up, because I do work with a lot of men and I really try to keep that to a professional setting. Like, yes, I would love to be your friend, but this is a professional like relationship. So, I think that that's where, especially as a woman in sales, sometimes people won't take you seriously because they just think that, oh, she's just talking to all the men. Unfortunately, I have to talk to all the men because that is who I need. I need the engineering guy. And it's amazing when you see a woman in a like a management position, you're like, yes, you go, this is the best day ever. And like I said, it's nothing against men and it's not all men. It's just specific ones that definitely I don't think have ever respected women, unfortunately. And it is sad, but it is people you're going to come in contact with. And
Yeah.
sometimes I just smile and I go, all right, great to meet you. And I never see them again because I don't want to. So I'm very good at getting out of a conversation. So
If a man had been in her shoes, if it had been two men, would it have taken talking about NC State and her degrees and her experience, or would he have just automatically
exactly.
have respected her body of knowledge walking in the door, right? So I hate that for you guys. But I do want to touch on this badass boss of yours. What's her name? So let's give her a shout out.
So Kimberly Pelkey, and she's our director of business development for IAS and Triune. And she has been in the field, like I said, 20 plus years. She actually is also an industrial engineer from NC State. And when her and I had met her when I'd first come on to IAS. And I was like, oh, wow, that's awesome. Like the sales team seems so cool. So I meet her, and she had said, I wanted you to come directly to the sales team. And I was like, that is so nice of you to say that. So they actually did take me into the panel shop, asked me, hey, what's in this enclosure? I look at the owner of the company. I said, some wires. So I wasn't ready to join sales just yet because I didn't know what a PLC was, didn't know what an HMI was, didn't know what a drive was. And honestly, I knew what they kind of were, but I couldn't like call it out. So when I'd met Kimberly, I was like, wow, I want to be just like her because has been, like I said, in this industry for 20 plus years. And I can't even imagine being a woman 20 years ago in this field and how different that was. I mean, even when she had told me her first like stories of her being in her sales career, like she truly was given like not as much attention as probably some of the male like men were in her field. And she, like I said, she's always been positive and always worked towards a goal. And I think that just shows so much about her character is that she didn't give up. Even when people probably were rude and negative and didn't help her when she needed it, she still went on. And she's still, like I said, she's been with IES for, I think it's actually, I want to say 13, 14 years as of right now. So she's been with IES and Triumph for a good bit of her career. And like, I couldn't say enough about how good of like leadership we have at IES because we have a good team. Like I said, I could go to any of the owners of the companies and say, hey, I need help, and they would help me. And that's what we've always talked about, just like how well taken care of we are in this company, that it makes it very hard. I don't want to leave. And I think that's a great thing. Back to company culture. I've been supported. I've been guided to a good path on what I can do and like what I want to learn. And like I said, Kimberly, I hope she watches this. That'd be awesome.
I hope she does too, and I want her to be on the show. So after Kimberly, after you watch this, please come be a guest. Katie sets you up perfectly. It's so important for that representation, right? For you to see that badass woman in that role, right? It definitely helps that drive, and that's I've got it around here somewhere. I now am working with this group called What About, or not What About Bob, Move Over Bob. It's a publication that's going into high schools here in Arizona to get young women interested in careers in the trades, right? And it's showing them representation. I want to introduce you, Katie Friday, to Kate Glanz, who is the publisher for when they start to explore outside of Arizona next school year. So for the 26-27 school year, they're going to start going outside. They're going to need badass engineer, and people who can relate, and that young women in high school can say, I can be her. I want to be her. That's right. And it's almost done in this like really cool teen magazine type format. But all the schools that I've talked to, all the teachers that are bringing it in are forcing their boys to read it too, because they need to see women in these roles too. Just as much as the young women need to see themselves in this role, the young men need to see women in these roles and say, oh yeah, that's badass. It's cool that she can weld, or that Katie's a badass engineer, or whatever. Like we've just got to have that representation.
I think Kimberly is a perfect example of somebody who is so, just like I said, she understands people too. And in sales, you do have to get along with so many different personality types that it's like she just knows how to talk to different people, and people with different goals. Like I said, I mean, I'm really excited. I'll have to, like I said, you'll meet Kimberly one day. I definitely know you will. I was gonna say at one of these shows, or like I said, if we end up in your city, it'll be great. I will come by and introduce you guys.
Last couple of questions, because we're running close on time here. Looking at the future, the next 5 years, 10 years, what excites you most about where industrial automation is
I'd
headed?
probably say, well, that's a really good question, actually. I will say that I'm excited for certain companies who have not yet looked at the automation side of things. We've gotten some calls about people who are like, "Hey, our facility does not have any automation at all. Like, and we would love to go to that next step." I think that in the next couple of years, there are going to be a lot of places that are kind of like reaching out like that because I mean, these smaller companies that are just getting bigger and bigger, they do need a solution to make sure that they can be producing what they've been producing and save money while doing it because obviously there is usually some type of like return on investment when you do upgrade to that. And I think that that's kind of the exciting thing to think about is that those places are now going to be able to start getting bigger and bigger. And then current companies that already have maybe some outdated systems, they're going to go to the next big thing. And we work with Siemens, Rockwell, Schneider Electric. Like we're independent, so we can work with all kinds of different brands and OEMs. And I think that that's exciting to think that almost every year something new comes out. There's something bigger and better. It's like the iPhone, but the iPhone hasn't really been getting different. It's just somehow getting skinnier. I'm not really sure how that works, but you know, but it is exciting because I get to go to these automation fairs where they're telling me that this is almost completely all AI. And I love AI. It scares me, but it's very exciting. So it's like something new is coming out every single year. And I get to sometimes be the first to see that because I'm a systems integrator and we're partners with all these people that they want us to see their product first so that we can show the customer how much better their process can be or how much more production they can produce in a matter of like minutes versus what they'd been working with. And like I said, I think that's so exciting to think about is just how much more we're going to be able to do if people do upgrade their systems and actually turn to automation. And like I said, it'll actually open up more jobs, in my opinion, for other people to be able to learn the new stuff. And if they're willing to learn, I'm not going to lie, sometimes it can be. It's not always my cup of tea to sit open a book about automation, but maybe I should create that an easy way and a fun way to learn automation because kids are probably not going to think about automation at first when they're in middle school and high school.
It'd be a challenge. It'd be a challenge. All right, last question, Katie. What haven't I asked you that you want to share with the audience?
I guess something that I'd like to talk about is, kind of going back to how they're trying to, make magazines for like women, or I guess like teens into college even, to like really get into engineering or medicine, or because it doesn't have to just be like engineering. It can be like you said, welding, things that like 20 years ago they would be like a woman welder, like that's crazy. Like now, I think that it's almost like amazing that more women are going into STEM and more women are going into trades because we have electricians who are women and they are insanely smart. And honestly, people are like, I want her back on my team. I'm like, amazing. We'll send her out. Like it's stuff like that. But I do think that the groups that I'm involved with, I love the fact that I'm involved with like emerging leaders and women in STEM because I hope that more people volunteer for that stuff because a lot of the times there's not a lot of funding that's behind those. So, more sponsors for those types of events because that's what gets us in front of college kids who maybe were a social work major. And then they were like, well, I didn't know I could do engineering this late on. And so I think that I would love if people would kind of look more into that is just like women in STEM and, just being able to volunteer at schools, being like, hey, I'll come and teach a little bit of an engineering lesson but they're not going to know it's engineering until I tell them at the end that was engineering. So it kind of like really helps students be able to know that there are those options out there. So I think that that's like I said, just a pretty cool thing just to be able to volunteer with groups and be a part of these emerging leader committees and even networking stuff too, because people don't know that that's also available for college kids who are looking for jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had a guest on, um, Brittany Greer. Was it Brittany Greer? I want to say it was Brittany Greer. She runs an organization called Rosie Riveters. That
Wow.
she was
The
a
top of the top,
nuclear
like
engineer,
smart.
like Sheldon Cooper, Amy, whatever, Farrah Fowler on Big Bang Theory, like level smart here, and um, And she was looking around her plant one day and realized she was the only woman there. And so she's like, why are there so few women in these STEM manufacturing trades, etc.? And it turns out, like, the science shows that young women are so good at math and science when they are young that when they hit like sixth, seventh, and eighth grade and it starts being a challenge, they don't know how to process that challenge. They don't have what's called a productive struggle. So, whereas young boys who struggle with sitting still and struggle with math and science from that early age, they have that productive struggle. And so they know how to get through those years of harder math and science, right? So, what she's done is she's created this program that goes into libraries and challenges super young girls and gives them a productive struggle so they know how to overcome those things. And the people who go through that are now going into engineering fields, nuclear engineering fields, industrial engineering, mechanical, electrical, blah blah blah, because they have that confidence that they can get through those struggles. They don't just say,
Yeah, that'd be
it's not for
awesome.
me, right? And so I love that. I want to connect you with her because I think you two would have a really cool conversation too.
Yeah, I would love that. No, that, like I said, I mean, that is interesting to know because I mean, I have ADHD. I mean, if you can't tell, we've already, if you can't tell, but it's like that. I think that maybe that's also what it's like. My superpower is what they say. Like ADHD is my superpower because I think from a very young age, I was struggling probably school wise, for that stuff. So that is interesting that, I love that program that she's made. So I would love to
Yeah.
meet her. That'd be amazing.
I love this conversation. I really appreciate you coming on. Uh you're just a really genuine human being. You're driven, you're
Thank you.
fun to talk to. You talk a lot. You've got great answers. But you've got great people to look up to as well. And it was just a fun conversation. It was everything I knew it was going to be. So thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Like I said, this was awesome. I was really excited. I was getting a little nervous because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to know the answers to things, but this was amazing. And like I said, I love what you're doing, and I love all your other podcasts that you have people on. I always think they're amazing for people to be able to see their stories. So, like I said, thank you so much, and you are all those things as well. And I knew we would have a fun conversation. That was the number one thing. So I appreciate it.
You may be thinking, why do I need to attend Med Device Boston? Because you're going to do more than browse. You'll build your pipeline. You'll see, you'll touch, and you'll engage with innovative solutions from 200 plus suppliers while participating in hands-on workshops, expert-led education sessions, and curated matchmaking, all engineered to accelerate your projects. Whether you're solving design, regulatory, or production challenges, Med Device gives you key conversations, timely insights, and the tools to move forward. Med Device Boston. Advance your pipeline, advance your network, advance what's next.